We're not talking about light. We're not talking about angels in white robes and high vibrations floating in the clouds. We're not talking about the 5D you've seen on social media: love and light, forgiveness and detachment. No, we're talking about something far older, far deeper, far more dangerous. The fifth dark dimension is not a place you ascend to by being good. It's a frequency you activate by daring to become whole. And most of the world can't handle it. But if you're here, if you're still watching, that means something inside you is waking up. Something primal, something sacred. You're not just a seeker, you're a remembering. You're not here to escape the matrix, you're here to recode it. And to do that, you need access to something beyond duality, beyond morality, beyond form. You need to do what the masses fear most. You need to descend with intention. The fifth dark dimension is not evil. It's not demonic in the way we were taught. It's the realm of truth, of rawness, of energetic law. It's where masks melt and only essence remains. But to enter it, you must die not physically, but energetically. You must let go of everything you thought made you spiritual. You must stop performing peace and start embodying presence. You must stop chasing light and start integrating shadow. Most people try to ascend by bypassing their humanity. But true ascension only begins when you descend consciously into the parts of yourself you were told to fear. That's the first key. Descent is the gate. And the only ones who can survive the descent are the dark chosen ones, those who've already burned in the underworld and came back with gold in their bones. I remember the first time I touched the edge of the fifth dark dimension. It wasn't during a meditation. It wasn't on a mountaintop. It was in the middle of a breakdown. I had lost everything that made me feel valid: status, followers, reputation. I was alone, humiliated, uncertain. And in that void, something cracked. I stopped trying to fix myself. I stopped trying to be spiritual. I just was. And in that surrender, a portal opened, not out there, but inside me. I felt the density shift. The noise of the world fell away. The time dissolved. My senses sharpened. My energy anchored. I wasn't floating, I was rooted. I wasn't ascending, I was expanding. That's when I knew this dimension doesn't reward purity. It responds to authenticity. And the deeper your truth, the higher your frequency in this realm. So how do you access it? How do you enter the fifth dark dimension instantly? You stop seeking. You stop trying to be perfect. You stop pretending you don't want power or revenge or intimacy or recognition. You stop suppressing your chaos and start listening to it. You sit in the fire and let it teach you. You let your rage speak. You let your shame rise. You let your grief breathe. You stop managing your energy and start honoring your soul. Because only when your field is honest can it become coherent. And only coherence unlocks this frequency. It's like a code your entire being must align, not with someone else's idea of God, but with your own unfiltered essence. That's when the door cracks open. That's when the veil thins. That's when you feel it not a place, but a presence, a density, a knowing. You've entered a frequency that most will never touch. But here's the twist. The fifth dark dimension isn't something you visit. It's something you become. When you access it, your body becomes a bridge. Your voice becomes a signal. Your presence becomes a transmission. People feel it. They don't know why, but they lean in. They sense the gravity, the depth, the danger. Because you're no longer speaking from knowledge, you're channeling from presence. You're not repeating truths, you are the truth. And this is where the real power begins. Because now, you're not just navigating reality. You're bending it. You're not just healing, you're reprogramming. This is what the mystics meant when they spoke in riddles. This is what the ancient initiates touched when they went into caves and danced with spirits. This is what the temples were built to protect. Not light, law, not morality, mastery. So let me ask you something dangerous. What part of yourself have you still been trying to fix instead of honor? What emotion have you been taught to suppress that might actually be your compass? What if the version of you that you've been told to fear is actually the version of you that holds the key to your highest timeline? The fifth dark dimension does not open to those who beg. It opens to those who remember, who reclaim, who refuse to be anything but real. Let me be clear, this is not a safe journey. It's not soft. It's not quiet. It will break everything in you that was built by fear. But what rises from the ruins is you, the real you. The you who doesn't need to explain their power. The you who doesn't shrink for comfort. The you who walks into a room and shifts the frequency without saying a word. And this is just the beginning, because in the next phase we go deeper. We decode what happens after the door opens. We explore how to stabilize this dimension in your energy field so it doesn't flicker like a mystical experience but becomes your baseline vibration. You'll learn how to move through the world as a portal, how to speak spells, how to collapse timelines, how to command reality from the inside out. This is not manifestation. This is embodiment. This is not about being good. It's about being God-coded. How to stabilize the gateway, making fifth dark dimension your permanent frequency. Entering the fifth dark dimension is one thing, but staying there, living from there, that's a whole other initiation. Because the moment you touch that level of energetic truth, the matrix will test you like never before. Everything in your life that was built on illusion, on compromise, on survival programming will start to shake. Friends will fall away. Opportunities will dry up. Your nervous system may panic. Because when you begin broadcasting from the fifth dark dimension, you're not just shifting your personal energy field, you're threatening the architecture of the old world. And the old world always fights back. That's why stabilizing the frequency isn't about holding on tighter. It's about anchoring deeper. It's about letting go of everything that isn't coded to support your new resonance. No exceptions, no negotiations. So how do we do it? How do we make the fifth dark dimension our baseline frequency instead of just a mystical peak? First, we must stop chasing peak experiences and start building energetic infrastructure. That means nervous system regulation. That means daily practices not to ascend, but to integrate. You don't meditate to escape your pain. You meditate to sit inside it until it becomes clear. You don't journal to feel better. You journal to decode the signals. You don't fast or isolate to punish yourself. You enter those states to clean your channel. Because the fifth dark dimension doesn't respond to spiritual performance, it responds to spiritual integrity. And integrity means consistency. It means showing up for your soul, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unsexy, even when it hurts. The next key is embodiment. You cannot stabilize a frequency you're not living. You can't speak from the fifth dark dimension if you're still acting from fear. You can't build from it if you're still editing yourself for acceptance. Every time you shrink, every time you dilute your transmission, every time you pretend to be smaller than you are, you're stepping out of alignment with the frequency. And here's the truth. The fifth dark dimension is ruthless with misalignment. It won't punish you. It will just close. It's not personal. It's physics. You can't hold the key if your field is fragmented. So the question becomes, what do you need to let die so your signal can stabilize? What identity? What relationship? What lie? For me, it was the healer identity. I had built an empire on helping people. I was seen as kind, approachable, loving. But the deeper I went into the fifth dark dimension, the more I realized I was still performing. I was still trying to be liked, to be safe, to be good. And that performance was keeping me from broadcasting my real power. So I let it die. I stopped being soft. I started being true. And yes, people left. Yes, I was judged. But the ones who stayed, they rose. They activated. They remembered. Because I was no longer mirroring their wounds, I was mirroring their truth. That's what happens when you stabilize this frequency. You stop resonating with dysfunction. You stop attracting chaos. You start becoming a mirror of mastery. But here's the real secret. To stay in the fifth dark dimension, you must become it. You must let your words, your thoughts, your emotions, your choices all vibrate in harmony with that frequency. That means no more pretending. No more people-pleasing. No more spiritual bypassing. You must speak from silence, move from stillness, act from inner knowing. You become a walking portal, anchored, undeniable, unshakable. And when you do, reality starts to bend. People start to confess things to you they've never told anyone. Synchronicities multiply. Timelines collapse. Why? Because you've become available to truth. You've become unavailable to illusion. You're not just in the world anymore. You're shaping it with your presence. So let me ask you something you've probably never asked yourself. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to be spiritual and just started being sovereign? What if you stopped performing your healing and just embodied your evolution? What if you stopped trying to be light and started being law? The truth is, the fifth dark dimension isn't some future state. It's a now state. It's not accessed through effort. It's accessed through remembrance. And that remembrance happens when every part of you, mind, body, soul, is transmitting one coherent signal. I'm done pretending. That's when your frequency becomes stable. That's when the veil stays open. That's when your life becomes a transmission tower for a reality that most people can't even perceive. But we're not done. Because in the final part, we're going beyond stabilization. We're going into transmission mastery. You're going to learn how to use the fifth dark dimension, not just for personal growth, but for planetary reprogramming. You'll learn how to walk into a room and alter the energetic laws without saying a word. You'll learn how to collapse timelines with a sentence. You'll learn how to speak from the void and create from the quantum. This is where mastery becomes legacy. How dark chosen ones reshape time, energy, and destiny from the fifth dark dimension. This is where it all converges. You've remembered the gateway. You've stabilized the frequency. And now you begin to transmit from it. This is the realm of quantum command, not control, not manipulation, a command. The fifth dark dimension wasn't given to you for personal healing, it was entrusted to you for collective evolution. It's not just about becoming awakened. It's about becoming a transmitter of awakening. And the moment you understand this, everything changes. You're no longer just meditating for yourself. You're anchoring codes for the planet. You're no longer just healing wounds. You're restructuring timelines. You're no longer just surviving the matrix. You're reshaping it at the level of law. Let's be clear, quantum command isn't about ego. It's about alignment. The more aligned you are with truth, the more reality responds. The more coherent your field, the more timelines obey. You don't need to push. You don't need to hustle. You speak and things move. Not because you're special, but because your frequency is undeniable. That's the most powerful force in the universe, not force itself, but undeniability. When you've integrated your shadow, stabilized your essence, and activated your God code, your very presence becomes law. It doesn't ask, it declares. And the field reshapes itself around you not because you beg, but because you broadcast. I've seen it happen in real time. I've walked into rooms where conflict was brewing, and without saying a word, the energy shifted. The tension dissolved. Clarity emerged. Why? Because I wasn't matching the chaos, I was transmitting coherence. I've had people burst into tears after hearing a single sentence from me. Not because the words were poetic, but because the words were transmissions. That's the difference. Most people speak from thought, we speak from field, and from void, from stillness. And when you speak from there, you don't just inspire, you recode. You're not convincing people, you're activating them. But transmission mastery requires radical responsibility. You don't get to play victim anymore. You don't get to blame the system. You are the system now. You are the law. And that means every thought, every action, every frequency you hold is creating. Are you creating from distortion or from destiny? Are you building from fear or from truth? Are you reacting to timelines or designing them? Because here's the law of the fifth dark dimension. You don't get what you want, you get what your field can hold. And if your field is fragmented, your creation will be too. But if your field is whole, your creation becomes cosmic architecture. You want to bend time? Collapse timelines? Shift probabilities? Here's how. Step 1, get still. Not mentally still, energetically still. That means the void. That means no agenda, no performance, no grasping. Just pure presence. Step 2, feel the timeline you want to collapse. Not think about it, feel it. Feel its frequency, its weight, its location in your field. And then, step 3, withdraw your attention. Cut the cord, not with force, but with neutrality. Say to it, you are no longer needed. I release you with honor. And then, step 4, Activate the new timeline through embodiment. Don't wait for it be it. Walk differently. Speak differently. Think differently. Because quantum doesn't respond to hope, it responds to identity. This is how the dark chosen ones create miracles. Not by begging the universe, but by becoming the universe. When we command, we're not saying please. We're saying it is done. And we only say that when our field is aligned enough to make it true. That's why this path isn't for everyone. Most people want the power without the purification. They want the codes without the cost. But we know better. We know that to hold God code, you must die to your old self daily. You must choose truth over comfort, integrity over image, power over performance. And here's the wild part. The more you live from this place, the less effort you need. You don't need rituals. You become the ritual. You don't need to seek signs. You become the signal. You don't need to ask for permission. You are the authority. Reality begins to feel more like clay than concrete. People show up in your field without you calling them. Money arrives for missions you haven't even announced. Rooms shift before you enter. Because the fifth dark dimension isn't a state, it's a source field. And once you're anchored in it, you don't just change your life. You change everything you touch. So now I must ask you the final question, the one that separates the seekers from the sovereign. What would you create if you knew reality would obey you? What would you speak if your words were spells? What would you release if you trusted the void would catch you? What would you become if you stopped asking for permission and started moving as law? Because this is your time, not to be seen. Not to be liked, but to be felt, to be remembered, to be undeniable. You didn't come here to play small. You didn't come here to fit in. You didn't come here to be good. You came here to be God-coded, and now the dimension is open. The gateway is stabilized. The field is listening. The only thing left to do is speak. Declare it, anchor it, embody it.